Zombies are monsters, and monsters play a very important role in our stories. They embody our doubts about ourselves. Monsters only gain popularity when they resonate with our culture, and they only do that when our collective identity is in crisis. And right now, our collective identity is in crisis. And the zombie is our monster. If you want more of an explanation of all this, check out my video called The Meaning of Monsters. After somebody gets bitten by a zombie, the victim will experience flu-like symptoms. Headache, fever, chills. Eventually they will slip into a coma and they will die. A few hours later, they will reanimate and voila, a zombie is born. In AMC's The Walking Dead, Dr. Jenner of the CDC in Atlanta shows an MRI of the zombification process. We see the brain of a victim full of glowing synapses. Dr. Jenner explains that contained in all the ripples of light are all the things that make you unique and human. A person's life, the experiences, the memories, and everything. And then we watch it all go dark. The frontal lobes, the neocortex, the human parts, the you parts are dark. All except for an insidious glow in the brainstem. That's enough to get them up and moving. Jenner describes what's left as a shell driven by mindless instincts. So that's the thing about zombies. They are mindless. I've said this before, zombies are reflections of ourselves, but they aren't exact reflections. If they were, they wouldn't be monsters. The most interesting thing about monsters is where they cross the lines between the self and the other. This is one of those spots. A key component of the modern self is our rationality. Since the Enlightenment, we have been thinking that the mind, that human reason, is the most important thing about us as human beings. But in the second half of the 20th century, we began having a lot of doubts and questions about the primacy of reason. And this has led to a crisis of identity, our collective identity. And we know what that means. Monsters. Cultural monsters. The zombie horde. So what monsters do is ask all kinds of questions. Zombies interrogate the primacy of reason in the modern secular identity. The brain takes a particularly important role in zombie narratives. The undead can be destroyed only by destroying their brain. Even decapitation will not kill a zombie, for their head remains animated, although considerably less mobile. The brain, then, is the most important part of a zombie. No brain, no zombie. In this sense, the zombie is a caricature of the modern conception of the self. There is a link between the primacy of reason in the modern identity and the brain being the essential organ of the zombie. So the brain is the most important part of the zombie, but the zombie has no mind. That's interesting. Another important part of the modern identity is that we are physical, and only physical. That is, we don't have a spiritual dimension, no eternal soul. There's nothing transcendent about us. This idea is called physicalism. In general, we've been quite comfortable with this idea, but maybe a little less so recently. We are uncertain, and the zombies embody that uncertainty. And they basically ask us, are we really just physical? It asks us this question by being a body without consciousness, or a mind or a soul. It presents a possible picture of what we would be like if our physicalist beliefs were actually true. Some philosophers have used the idea of a zombie as an argument against physicalism, but that's another video. The point is that zombies force us to look at a possible picture of the modern secular self, if what we believe about ourselves is true. We have our doubts, the monster embodies those doubts. Then there's that bit about zombies eating brains. Although this wasn't part of Romero's 1968 conception of the zombie, since the brain-eating zombie made its first appearance in Return of the Living Dead, it has become a zombie trope. This is a fascinating idea. Zombies destroy and consume brains, the seat of human reason. The thing which modern man values most about himself more than any other thing is nothing more than zombie chow. But the brain-eating zombie doesn't just eat brains when it's eating brains. They're consuming the locus of meaning. In his massive book, The Secular Age, Charles Taylor describes the movement of meaning from the world outside ourselves to the interior world of the mind. The meaning of anything and everything used to be in the thing itself, and in its relationship to the rest of the created order. But with the death of God, meaning moved briefly into universal reason, but that no longer works. So meaning had nowhere else to go except into the human subject. You can see how this creates a separation between the subject and the rest of the world. Charles Taylor calls the modern subject the buffered self, in that it is closed off from the world of objects and the transcendent. In the modern context, with the consumption of cranial content, we see the destruction of consciousness, personality, and memory. This in itself is a horror for the identity that believes that this is all there is. But the horror is compounded when we remember that in the modern context, all meaning resides nowhere else but in the individual mind. So that's gone too. In the eating of brains, the zombie shows its disdain not only for reason and human individuality, but for meaning itself. The zombies are asking perhaps this question: if value and meaning are so precious, should you not find a more secure space in which to store it? Of course, when the zombie asks this question, it sounds more like... So we just covered a few ways in which zombies are so unreasonable. By that I mean they challenge our faith in reason. But they're unreasonable in at least one more way. We don't know where they came from. And unless you can find the cause, you can't really understand them. And we hate that. This will be the subject of the next zombie video. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.